Hello, welcome to the LABRATS podcast with our very special guest star, Kitty. I'd like to welcome Alan Owen, one of the founders of LABRATS. And first of all, I'd like to know why you set up LABRATS in 2020.
So we set up LABRATS because there was a need across the world for everybody to know about nuclear weapons testing. Now, I'm sure the audience that listening today will know about nuclear weapons testing, but 95% of the country don't know that Britain tested nuclear weapons. They have no idea that they tested nuclear weapons. And we travelled around the world and we found out that there are lots of impacted communities around the world, such as the downwinders, the indigenous people of the islands and the lands where we tested nuclear weapons. And we found that there were thousands and thousands of people who have been affected by nuclear testing across the world. So we set up LABRATS, which stands for Legacy of the Atomic Bomb Recognition for Atomic Test Survivors. That's what LABRATS stands for. And it's there to show the world that there was nuclear testing. We did it. We affected the planet. And we need to recognize what we did and acknowledge the problems that the communities are having. So that's why we set it up. And we've been quite successful in campaigning throughout our 3 years.
I didn't know that it stood for Legacy of the Atomic Bomb Recognition for Atomic Test Survivors. I didn't know that. I only thought it was called LABRATS was because, well, that's what they were.
Yeah, they were guinea pigs. Lots of times people have said that they were totally used. If you listen to the veterans, they were used for experimentation. Documentation states from the UK government especially that they must see the effects of a nuclear test on men with and without protective clothing. So they were used in a human experimentation.
I'd like to know your connection to nuclear tests.
So the reason that we do all of this is because my father was a nuclear test veteran. So my father went to Christmas Island in the Pacific. Now, to quickly explain that, there are two Christmas Islands, one in the Pacific Ocean and one in the Indian Ocean. We're talking about the one in the Pacific Ocean, now called Kiribati. Now, my father went in 1961 to see tests in 1962, which was a joint UK-US test called Operation Dominic. So all of the tests have got operation names, and his was Operation Dominic. It was known in the UK as Operation Brigadoon, and he witnessed 24 nuclear detonations in 78 days whilst on that island.
Okay, 24 nuclear detonations in 78 days?
That's right, yeah. So some were smaller detonations, but some were larger detonations.
Doesn't matter really, does it? It's still 24, isn't it? It's a lot.
Yeah, and the largest one being 7.8 megatons. Now, to explain that to people, 7.8 megatons is 7.8 million tons of TNT exploding. That's the equivalent.
Okay, that's, massive. There's no other word for it.
There is no other way to say. It's about 300 to 400 times bigger than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Wow. I'd like to know your goals and objectives for next year and oncoming years. I don't know what personally you are thinking to do with LABRATS, what LABRATS want to do.
So when LABRATS was set up, we set it up to become a voice for everybody. So these impacted communities around the world, whether it's indigenous people or the veterans or the descendants like myself, we set it up so that it would become a voice. That small voice of a directory of people became bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So in 2020, we set up for the medal. And our aim is to make sure that these nuclear test veterans, like my father, who's no longer with us, unfortunately he died in 1994, are never forgotten. Because there's generations like yourself, who have no idea that Britain tested nuclear weapons. Yeah, if I was I'm at the college now, if I was to stand outside and have a poll and say, did you know Britain tested nuclear weapons? I'm sure 90% of people that I would ask would say no. And the ones that did wouldn't know how many we tested or where they were. So we're starting right at this very beginning with educating them. And that's why we've set up our academy. And that's why we have Kitty and the rats, to get people interested in the educational side of what we did. It's history. Yeah, it affects geography, it affects history, it affects science.
It affects everything, doesn't it?
Political, climate, every subject that you could possibly teach, there is an effect.
Well, it doesn't just affect the people that were there, it affects their kids, their grandchildren even. It affects everyone.
Exactly, yeah. If you take plutonium, for instance, plutonium is used in nuclear weapons testing. That has a half-life of 24,000 years.
It's a bit more than your normal lifespan, isn't it?
So if you let that sink in for a little while, 24,000 years, and Britain tested in Australia in a place called Maralinga, which, if you look at Maralinga on the map, is right in the middle of Australia. It's not on some island miles and miles and miles away. It's right in the middle of Australia in the desert. And we tested weapons, plutonium weapons. That plutonium was then just buried in the sand. So those lands are contaminated. There are still signs there that say, do not go to these lands, do not disturb the sand, do not pick up any debris, because it could be radioactive. And these tests were 70 years ago.
I shouldn't laugh, but they should have known better than to bury it in the sand, pretty much. They should have known that it was going to...
Unfortunately, it was an out of sight, out of mind type concept of, we bury it, it goes away. Yeah. There have been cleanups since then because people have complained, and that the technology has moved on in terms of knowing how radioactive these places are. So when we think about what we did, we wouldn't do it today. We hope that nobody will ever have to see a nuclear weapons test again, and hopefully nobody will be stupid enough to push the button.
Yeah.
And for anybody to ever see it or experience it. What these guys experienced, when you sit and talk to the veterans, can you imagine now, you are 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
Okay. You are conscripted into the army.
Yeah, so
because you are forced, because there is national service. You have to go. You have no choice. You have to go. You are then sent away thousands and thousands of miles away from home. You have no internet. The internet hasn't even been invented. The only way you can communicate with your family is by post.
And that's not going to take, it's not going to be next day delivery, is it?
No. Yeah, there's no Amazon delivery. There's no on-demand sort of services. You're then taken away to an island. Some of you have never been even out of their towns before.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think of that.
So they're now on this island. It's a beautiful island. It's sandy beaches, beautiful blue sea, but there are crabs the size of dinner plates there. It's hot, really hot. You're in a tent. You're doing duties. You are digging holes. You are making roads. You are making airstrips. You are preparing for this nuclear weapons testing.
Yeah, you're doing what you're told. That's the idea, isn't it?
And then you're forced to sit on the island, on the beach, with your back towards the explosion. You hear from the tannoy with the plane going over, they've dropped the bomb. Then you hear the explosion. Mm-hmm. You feel the ground shake. You can feel it. It's like an earthquake going off because it's so massive. Then you feel heat.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, all they got told was cover your eyes.
Yep, they've got their backs, they've got their hands in their eyes like that. The flash from the explosion is so powerful that you can see the bones in your hand. Because if you ever done that, if you put a torch up your hands, you can see the outline bones, you can see it. Some people even reported that they could see the bones in the person in front of them through the closed hands. Then you feel the heat, and it was described to me as somebody passing electric fire through you. Ooh. So you then feel the blast, because you feel the blast. Bearing in mind that these people are anything between 10 and 20 miles away.
Yeah.
They feel the blast, then they're instructed to turn around and look at the mushroom cloud going up in the air. And they're seeing it, and it's a beautiful sight. The whole thing, the colours, the drama of it is an amazing sight.
Yeah, you're seeing something people don't necessarily see every day.
It was known as a dragon's breath is the best way to describe when a dragon breathes fire, that is what it's showing. And a lot of the veterans say that they've seen the dragon because they have seen it for their own eyes.
Yeah, they've seen the dragon's breath. They've seen the flame.
And then after the cloud and it disperses, they were left. They went back to their tents, or they went back to their duties. Fallout, the rain came. All that material that went up, and that radioactive material came back down again in rain. So they were rained on. They were drinking it. They were eating it. They were swimming in the sea. They were eating the contaminated fish.
Yeah.
Everything that had happened to them on that island and in the Australian outback. So if you take Australia, for instance, they tested nuclear weapons, explosive weapons, but they also did what they called minor trials, which were they tested things like, if I've got some plutonium in a Land Rover and I blow it up, what will happen to it? Because these things happen.
That's a great idea, isn't it? We'll put some like dynamite pretty much in the back of a Land Rover, drive it down the road and blow it up.
Yeah, because they were worried. This is the Cold War era. They were worried about Russia doing these type of things. So they would blow it up, see what would happen. What they would then do is say, this area is contaminated, this area is not contaminated. And the way they distinguished the two was they put a wire fence between the two. So one little strand of wire, don't go in there.
Oh, that's great, isn't it?
So most people now have been to a beach or desert.
Yeah.
The wind blows. All that contamination just blows. It's in your food. It's in your Land Rover. It's in your clothes. It's everywhere.
Even if you go down to the beach now, you can see the sand with the wind, and it's,
Yeah, that's right. It gets whipped up. And, you're inhaling it. You're inhaling this radioactive dust that's coming in. So even people who didn't see an actual, atmospheric test, the people that went to the cleanup, the people that were involved in the minor trials were inhaling all of this radioactive fallout in their food, the water, swimming in the lagoons, swimming in the sea, all of this stuff they are inhaling.
Yeah. I'd also like to know about your magazine, because it's a quarterly magazine every 4 months. 3 months.
So what we do is, LabRats is here to educate the world. I mean, I've told you a very small part about what the British testing program did. But we're not alone. The Americans tested, France tested, Russia.
Loads of countries have.
There's lots. There's over 2,000 nuclear tests have happened worldwide.
Okay, it's not a small number then, is it?
Not a small number. And what we do is we look after our members in the UK. So we have associate members, and anybody can join. It doesn't have to be you're a nuclear veteran or a descendant or a family. Anybody can join if you're interested in nuclear testing, or just want to contribute and help us get the message out there. The magazine is called Atom, and the Atom magazine is there because everything we do with nuclear testing is obviously to do with atoms and splitting the atom. And it gives information about what's happening, what we do as an organisation. We hold a reunion every year. So we have 100 veterans come every year.
I've read a bit about the reunion. It happens every year.
Yep.
Most of the veterans and the descendants are welcome. Every person that was there is welcome. As long as
we have a week-long reunion. And the week-long reunion is there so that people can come talk to their old colleagues. We show videos. We tell them what's happening. We tell them where we are with our campaigning, what's happening with the government, and what's happening worldwide. And we get speakers to come in from worldwide. We get ministers and MPs and other things to come and talk as well.
This brings me on to the medal, the NTV medal, the Nuclear Test Veterans Medal. It was awarded in 2022, and it was given to you by Boris Johnson, I believe.
Yes. So what happened was
that ticked the box pretty much.
Yeah. What happened was we started off a campaign. I started it off way back in 2017.
The Look Me in the Eye campaign, I'm guessing.
That's right. So before that, there was 2017. I was at a reunion, and one man. I asked them what did they want. I was chairman of another association then, and I asked them what did they want. And one guy stood up at the back and said, "I want a medal." That man's name was Colin Muir. I want a medal. So we started off meeting with government, having a medal, going through a process which is called the Advisory Military Subcommittee, which advises on medals. And unfortunately, the government found that the nuclear veterans didn't meet the risk or rigor to get a medal. They weren't put in harm's way. Because they weren't being shot at by an enemy, they weren't classed as ready to have a medal, risk and rigor.
They cover themselves up pretty much. That's what they're doing.
That's what they're doing. They don't want to admit to it that they put these men in harm's way. So what we did was we set up the Look Me in the Eye campaign, and that was set up in 2021 with the Daily Mirror and Susie Boniface for the Medal for Heroes.
Yep.
And what we did was we changed tact completely. And what we wanted, and we found out that there would never been a prime minister that had ever looked a nuclear test veteran in the eye.
Really?
Not officially.
Not one.
Not officially at a meeting to look him in the eye and say, why won't you recognise me?
Yeah.
So we set up this campaign with the Daily Mirror, who were fantastic, and a lady called Susie Boniface, who is the journalist who helps us a lot. And what we did was we got people to say, come on, these MPs, this government, look them in the eye.
Yeah.
And we were very lucky that we met with Sir Keir Starmer, who supported our campaign, said, yes, if I was Prime Minister, I would be doing this.
Yeah, obviously he's a big name in the politics world.
Exactly, yeah, and was very supportive of us with John Healey and Rebecca Long-Bailey and Rachel Hopkins and lots of MPs, Sir John Hayes. We then went up to Manchester and met Andy Burnham and Steve Rotherham, the Metro mayors, who again supported our campaign, and we joined what's called the Hillsborough Law campaign.
Yeah, everyone's heard of the Hillsborough.
The Hillsborough Law campaign is to get a duty of candour for the UK government so that officials, if they lie, can be prosecuted. At the moment, if a Ministry of Defence official lies about something being there, they can't be officially prosecuted.
Yeah, again,
which
they
is
cover it
totally
up,
wrong. So they can just cover it up. I mean, we've seen it with the post office scandal, how much of a cover-up that was.
And obviously that's massive at the moment. The government covered it up. Everyone to do with it covered it up pretty much. So they just couldn't admit to what they did wrong.
Yep. So we got support. We got support from the Metro mayors. We got support from some celebrities like Al Murray, the pub landlord.
Yeah.
He was brilliant. And we got our meeting with Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson was Prime Minister then. And we went to the House of Parliament and met him.
Yep.
He gave us 40 minutes of his time, which is a long time for a Prime Minister to meet with campaigners and give them that amount of time. And he was appalled. He actually stood up for us and said, no, I want to get this sorted and we will get you a medal. I want to put things in place to get you so you're not airbrushed from history, and I want to get these documents to you that we're waiting for from the government. Unfortunately, he got ousted out of power, but he carried it on. And in November 2022, at the National Memorial Arboretum, Rishi Sunak came with Ben Wallace, who was Defence Minister then, and Johnny Mercer, the Veterans Minister, and they announced that they will give them a medal. And lots of people told us that it was not possible. You'd never get that medal. Yeah,
because I've read a couple of times I've read a little bit of your magazine and obviously the questions, and there is, a recurring theme of there are many people saying you won't succeed, you won't go far, you won't get a medal, but obviously you did. You did it with the amount of criticism and all that.
Yeah, we did. We got a lot from other sources. The government source, the Ministry of Defence gave it to it very, very reluctantly. But there were people within our own groups who said, you won't get it.
Yeah.
It'll never happen, because as soon as they give you the medal, they're recognising you and that there was some risk or rigour and there was some issue. So what they did was they gave us what's called a commemorative medal, but it's still issued by the King. So it has the King's name head on it. And it's one of the
that one there, ain't it?
The ones that, it is. It's here. It's actually here. This is a miniature of it. And we were very lucky to have some input into the actual ribbon as well. So it was a big win for us, a big, big win. But it was only the start of what we'd asked for. We'd asked for recognition, but this education piece is massive.
Yeah.
What we really want now is an apology for what they did and a setup of a compensation scheme.
Yeah. Like today you gave me a hoodie with the nuke blood scandal. Give me the bloody truth as the title. It's I quite like the title personally. I find it quite funny. But that's the next step, isn't it, really?
Yeah, what we're doing is I went to visit Johnny Mercer, last year. I had a meeting with him and presented him with evidence that the veterans' medical files are being either withheld from them, they are missing information, or it's being redacted. So for instance, one of our veterans has had 80 skin cancers removed from his body.
Yeah, it's not 1 or 2, is it?
That's
It's
not
80.
normal. When he asked for his medical records, his time at Christmas Island is missing from the medical records. It's
So
gone.
pretty much the commanding officer or someone was covering it up.
Yes, for whatever reason, they're gone, okay? I've asked for my father's medical records because I've got a genetic heart condition, and it could affect other members of the family. So what they did was I asked for full disclosure to what was in his medical records, and they won't give me full disclosure. They'll only give me partial disclosure.
Yeah, and the thing is, you have the right to ask for your father's medical records because, you mentioned your heart disease. That could affect people in your family. The amount of stuff. Cancer runs in families, heart disease runs in families. It's so much for helping people. It's, you need to tell them the bloody truth, pretty much.
That's right. And back in 2018, we asked the government whether they had these blood tests that were taken. Because if you went to Christmas Island, you had a blood test taken beforehand and you had a blood test taken afterwards.
Also, they're interested in the science.
Correct. So this is why we go down the human experimentation side. So what happened was they denied it and said, well, we don't hold any of those files, so if it's anything, it'll be in your individual medical files. Then after a few more years of freedom of information and stuff, they said, actually, hang on a minute, we do have some.
Oh, so sorry, we have got
we do
this.
have some, but they're not personal. And then it turned out that they held 5,000 of the records. And now it turns out that they've actually got 150 documents that have titles such as blood counts on Indigenous people, blood counts at Maralinga, that have been restricted under national security laws. So what they've done, they've been stamped as saying, do not release these documents. They are under national security, and they will be withheld for up to 100 years.
So I'm guessing the before was normal genetic code, the normal DNA, normal blood, typical normal, expect what you'd give in a hospital or they take in hospital. Afterwards, I'm guessing they found effects in your DNA, effects in your blood.
Yeah, I mean, we want to know one way or the other.
Yeah.
But the fact that they've hidden them, stamped them as being a threat to national security, I can't believe that my dad's blood tests are a threat to national security. So, for instance, if you take John Morris, who was a big campaigner with Boris Johnson in our medal, when he met Boris Johnson and we'd had the meeting, just before the end of the meeting, he sat with Boris, like I'm sitting with you opposite you now. And he said, Boris, forget everything that's going on. It's time. You can either recognise me or you can tell me to sod off.
Yeah.
What's it going to be? And he was banging his hand on the table, which was amazing.
And that's probably the best way of putting it. Sat at one end of the table to the other, and you're going, you're either going to give me the medal or not. Just tell me what it is.
That's right.
And you've been covering it up for years.
Now what's happening is that there is a Andrew Murison, who is a junior defence minister. He's looking at these documents, and we're waiting for him to release the documents to us and what's in there. All the time that we have set up a legal action with McHugh Jury and Partners, which is a blood scandal case that's going to be given to the MOD. We're going to be suing the MOD in the next couple of weeks.
It's not your typical court case, is it?
No, I mean, taking on a government is a major thing, is a major step. It costs money. We've had to crowdfund to get the money so far. We need more money. But we believe that this has a massive chance of success. The last case that was brought in 2012, 2013 was actually time barred. So the statute of limitations meant that they couldn't bring it in the end. Whereas this case doesn't have that statute of limitations. So either way, the government are stuck, because if they say, yes, we've got them now, here they are, you can say, well, why have you been withholding them for 70 years?
Yeah.
If they say they don't have them, then that's medical negligence, because there's medical records that are now suddenly gone missing.
Yeah, the government doesn't just suddenly lose something they've had for the past 20 years or 30 years, 70 years in this case.
So, and if they give them the medical records, and it says in there, like one veteran that we have has anemia in his blood, and they give him the medical records, and they say, oh yeah, we knew about your anemia 70 years ago. And he says, why didn't you tell me? That could have helped me. There's negligence there as well. So they're stuck in this corner at the moment.
Yeah. And the one thing that they don't like is that they know that it has affected their health and their kids' health. Because you see it sometimes, and they go, even just now, like my son was born blind. Because your sister's blind in one eye, and it doesn't just happen. It does happen all the time, but when all the stuff that's happened for generations, the children have been affected. Some of them have been formed. You've heard the term jelly babies and all. Like you mentioned, the 80 skin cancers. What's the chance of cancer going to be for those kids? Because it's going to be massive.
When you look at the children, the descendants like myself, and their children and their children, got all of them going, there was a survey done, and it showed that they had 10 times the amount of birth defects. So, miscarriages, stillborn children, children born with deformities, extra limbs.
There's a recurring theme with miscarriages on most of the veterans.
Yeah.
That's the big one I've read in magazines and online, is that it's just there's miscarriages.
And when you get the descendants together, like we do at the reunion, and they say, I've got a particular syndrome, for instance, they say, and you say, well, you look that up, and it says it affects 1 in 20,000 people.
And then there's like 5 people on the table.
3 to 5 people out of that 100 people go, I've got that.
Yeah.
You start to think that that's not quite right.
Like, I'm guessing at the reunions, some of them have probably said, I've got a problem with my teeth, for example. I bet about 5 people down that table have got problems with their teeth, and it's similar.
Yeah, it runs through eyes, teeth, bones, and autoimmune diseases.
Yeah.
Basically, things that make up your genetic code. And we believe that this is going to affect for generations and generations. There's been research done that says it will affect generations and generations. And we now know that back in 1988, there was a study done by the UK government, because the veterans were coming along saying, we've got all of this. So they did a study. And what they did was they took the veterans that were still alive, and they pushed it against what's called a cancer mortality check, which is done every year. Basically, it says if you die of cancer, you get flagged on this database.
As you should.
Yeah, and then there's a mortality register, so when you die in birth, deaths and marriages, that gets flagged as well. So they did that against what they call a control group.
Okay.
So veterans who had served and veterans that haven't served same time. And what they came back with was that there was no real comparison. These veterans didn't have elevated levels of cancer. They didn't have these issues. But that survey of cancers only started in 1983. That's when it was recorded.
Oh.
So anybody that died between 52 and 83 isn't on that list.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that were affected the most, and they're the ones that have been, that have gone.
Like ionizing radiation. Yeah, people can die from anywhere from like days to years.
That's right. Yeah, it takes years and years and years, and it depends on your dose. If you think of the people that did different jobs on the island and at Maralinga and at Montebello Islands, they were Navy, they were RAF, there were the Army there building airstrips and things. There were people decontaminating aircraft. There were people flying through the mushroom cloud. I mean, can you imagine that now?
Yeah. Can you imagine
exploding a nuclear bomb and then saying, right, you've got to fly your plane through the middle of it.
I'm ordering you to fly through that mushroom cloud.
Exactly, and get samples. It just wouldn't happen today. You wouldn't do it. And I know back then it was a different time. There was a Cold War era. We were fighting, if anybody's seen the Oppenheimer film, we were fighting to develop this bomb. But it was done at all costs. That was the key thing for us, is it's done at all costs. These people were expendable. They were totally expendable to get that bomb done.
Like, I've watched Oppenheimer, and that does highlight the fact that there was no, health and safety thing. It was done at any cost to beat the Nazis, pretty much.
Yeah, and you're talking about Germany developing a weapon. You're talking about Russia developing a weapon.
Yeah, it's not just one country.
There was this race. It was a race to get it done.
Yeah.
And if you watch Oppenheimer, afterwards that it was exploded, he says, I'm the destroyer of worlds, and what have we done? And campaigned for them never to be used as weapons again. So they destroyed him.
Yeah.
They literally destroyed him, and it destroyed his life because he came out opposite to what they wanted them to do.
Yeah. People use the term as like nuclear deterrent. We have nuclear weapons, and, it's trying to keep the peace. It's not really keeping the peace when you're keeping most of the world at, a gun, pretty much.
Yeah, it's
a loaded gun.
It's the thing in the playground. I'm bigger than you. My dad's bigger than you. My dad
button's bigger than you.
Yeah, exactly. It's these sort of things. And the UK, just the UK alone, spend billions of pounds every year on their nuclear arsenal that they've never used.
Yeah, that's
billions. The Americans spend trillions of dollars on their nuclear arsenal.
But they haven't.
So when we sit and say we're in a cost of living crisis and we haven't got money for this and we haven't got that, and you think, why are we spending these billions and billions of pounds on a nuclear deterrent?
And like you said earlier, all it takes is one madman to press the button, turn the key.
Yeah.
And sadly, there is people in this world that would do it.
Yeah. And these guys helped develop this weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were there. They did their duty. They were told to go and they went.
And they got shoved to the
They
side.
served their country. They did what they were told. Afterwards, we know the effects.
Mm-hmm.
We have documentation that says back in the 1950s, Anthony Eden, who was Prime Minister at the time, was given a report on the genetic effects of nuclear testing.
Okay.
Do you know what his response was to the memo?
I'm going to say I have no recollection of this.
His response was, it's a pity, but we cannot help it. That's his response.
That's a great reply, isn't it?
From the Prime Minister. So, with all this documentation that we now have, because we've got it from the archives, we are in a much better place to take on the government, to right this wrong. It's a stain on the history of the UK. Yeah. If I polled this college today and say, right, would you test nuclear weapons again? Do you want nuclear weapons? I'm sure that the majority would say we don't want nuclear weapons and we should definitely never test them again.
Yeah. So I reckon there'd probably be a few people that would say, we can have them. Like, pretty much now we can have them, but we don't use them. But I reckon a lot of people would go, why did we even invent it? Why was it such a thing?
Yeah. Why do we need to do it? And when you talk to the veterans, some are pro, well, we need to keep the weapons because, I did my duty. I don't want to be effective for them all to be wiped out. Some are like, no, nobody ever needs to see a nuclear explosion ever again. We don't want that on this planet.
Yeah. And the sad thing is that people just think that when you explode a nuclear bomb, it's just going to be the people around it that are going to die. No, like places like Nagasaki are still radioactive.
Yeah.
It goes on for hundreds of years before it goes back down to a normal, actual sort of dose of radiation.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to the Montebello Islands, and the Montebello Islands are off the coast of Australia.
Yeah.
Okay. And the Montebello Islands are famous in the UK because that's where we did our first atom bomb test.
Yeah, because I've read about it.
Yeah, we exploded a bomb in a ship's hull in HMS Plym. Okay,
Which wouldn't be allowed now, would it?
And it was done that way because we were worried as a government that somebody would sail a ship into one of our harbours, say like Portsmouth, and set it off. So that's why they did it. Okay.
Oh, that's a great way, isn't it?
Once they'd set this bomb off, that ship was gone. It was vaporised. It was gone.
Yeah.
We have documentation from the government and the officials going, what are we going to tell people? Because it's gone.
Yeah.
1 minute it was there, 1 minute it's gone. Should we tell them that it's sunk? So we can't tell them the power of this weapon because it's literally gone. But if you go back to Montebello Islands now, if you go back there, you will see a sign that says, do not stay longer here than 1 hour.
Yeah, because there are places in the world that have those signs and say you must wear hazmat suit.
Yeah, and
everywhere.
do not pick it up. Do not pick up anything because it could be radioactive. Do not camp here.
Yeah, don't stay here. Don't go
Do
out.
not disturb the dust here because you could be inhaling it. That was 1952 we did that.
Yeah, and then there was people like playing football there.
It's 72 years later.
Like
and
what do you reckon the dose of radiation was then?
Yeah. So you think about that and then think about the people that were there.
Yeah.
I mean, if I asked you now, right, I'm going to take you off to an island and I'm going to stand you in front of a nuclear bomb, you go, you are crazy. I have nowhere going. I'm not doing that.
My first reply would be, you're nuts.
Yeah.
That'd probably be my words, you're nuts.
Yeah. And I asked that question to Gavin Williamson, who was the Defence Secretary at the time. I stood in his office in Whitehall and I said, right, let's look out 20 miles in the distance. Yeah, that's about there. Right, I'm going to set a nuclear bomb off there. What are you going to do, Mr. Williamson? And he said, well, we'd never do that. And I said, but you did, and you did it to my father.
Yeah. So don't try and cover it up. Like, the sad thing is that it's not the first time they've covered stuff up. But that's just the answer to it, isn't it? We'll just cover it up. We didn't do it. There's no thing there that we did it. We don't prove that all the health effects. There was no reason to it.
There is a great motto that the veterans are going by, which is delay, deny until we all die. because that's what they want. The MOD want everyone to die. We know out of the 22,500 people that went, it's a major operation, the biggest operation since World War II, that there are approximately 2,500 veterans left.
Yeah, because most of them would be, say, in their 70s, I'm saying now.
Well,
60s, 70s?
They are average age now is about 85.
Oh, I was well off then.
Because if you take the majority, Operation Grapple, which was the biggest one, was done in 1957, 58. So you would have been 1920 then. So you would have been born in 1937.
Yeah, so you'd have been in your 20s or 1980.
So now you are 87 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, 88 years old, depending if you were a young person. If you were, most of them were between 18 and 21. And most of them that went weren't married. Most of them that went were fit young men who went on their own.
Yeah. As in, like the way I'd see it is that they've got the 18 to 21-year-olds. They haven't got much responsibilities in the world yet. They haven't got any kids that they need to worry about. They haven't got a wife to worry about. They haven't got a house to worry about.
And if you watch
that way,
and if you look at the pictures, we got thousands of pictures of their time on the island. They're all extremely fit.
Yeah,
I mean, all extremely fit. There isn't an overweight one there at all.
Yeah,
they're all got suntans.
Yeah, they've all been out in the sun having
because
a nice time.
They wore shorts. Yeah, they wore.
It's going to be warm there.
Yeah, boots and shorts because it was hot. And when these bombs are going off, they're sat with a hat on, a top on, a pair of shorts and a pair of boots. They got no other protective clothing at all. Yeah. They just sat.
And I've read somewhere that the officers had some sort of protection or some kind of protection. But if you look at the foot soldier, probably your father, who's out there probably going like that. And the officer's probably got some sort of
So the scientists,
protection.
There's a great picture. The plane has landed that's collected the samples.
Yeah.
Okay. The scientists are there, full what you would call a hazmat suit now, but a full white suit, getting the sample, put it in a box.
And then there's probably
along come two army guys dressed in their tropical shorts, t-shirt, pick it up and take it off.
Yeah, so you can just see some 18-year-old go like that.
Well, hang on a minute. Why are they in hazmat suits? And you've just picked that up, that they've just put that in there. And there's another great picture at Operation Buffalo in Australia where the scientists are all in a long line coming back from sampling. They're all in their suits and they're walking along this trail. And they're being checked in and out by a guy who's an army guy, just sat at a table like I'm sat now in a pair of shorts going, yep, you're done. And they're walking past him in these suits.
Just going, you're done.
And the only thing that's separating them is this little wire fence. It's when you actually see it, it's so stupid and so unbelievable,
idiotic.
That their argument that everybody was safe and that health and safety was correct and that it was up to the standards is just laughable.
Yeah,
absolutely laughable.
And one of the last things I'd like to talk about is how can people help anybody?
So there's a couple of ways you can help if you're interested. Mm-hmm. The first thing is to join LABRATS. If you go to our website, which is LABRATS.international, you will see all about what we do, and you can join as an associate member. It costs £24 a year, and you'll get 4 copies of this wonderful magazine. What it then does, you can join our Facebook groups.
Okay.
So we have a closed Facebook group where people can talk about their experiences as well. But for our litigation, the nuke blood scandal with the hoodie that you're wearing there, we have a crowdfunder set up. So again, if you go to our website at labrats.international, just type /blood, and you will see all about the nuke blood scandal. And you can donate to the crowdfunder, which is enabling us to sue the MOD. We need £100,000. We need an initial 50,000. We need to take it to £100,000. We're on about 54,000, I think it is at the moment. So we need another push.
So you're about halfway there.
Yes. And we've used that money already, that 50,000, to start the process off. So that's working quite well. But what we need to do is for people to tell other people. Yeah. Or if you've got a neighbour, an elderly neighbour, who said he was at the tests, or has been affected by the tests, or is a veteran, tell them about it. Get them to go online. Yeah. Get them to see about it. Talk to other people about it.
Because who knows, their friend might have been there.
Exactly. And if you are an educational, in any sort of educational establishment, go to our academy. We've got a LABRATSacademy.online. It contains every single details of every single nuclear test that's ever happened on every day. It contains quizzes, guides, and in the next couple of weeks, it's going to have a brand new educational video that's coming out.
I take it they're then.
They are. That's right. Yeah.
So I'm guessing they're named after operations.
They are. The 4 rats that we have are named after operations. Well, they're named after specific parts. So our 4 rats for the lab rats, obviously you saw Kitty. Kitty is named after Kiribati, which is where Operation Grapple and Operation Dominic happened. Mm-hmm. Then we have Runit.
Okay.
Now, Runit is named after Runit Dome. So for anybody that's watching this, go and Google Runit Dome. Runit Dome is in the Marshall Islands where the Americans tested. It's a dome that's visible from space that contains radioactive material. What they did was they buried it in a pit and put concrete dome over it.
Again, we'll cover it up by putting some concrete or something around it.
Exactly. That concrete's now splitting and the material is leaking into the sea, into the ocean, sorry. We have Jesse. Now, Jesse is actually named after my father. His nickname in the Navy was Jesse because his name was Owen, and there was a famous runner called Jesse Owen, and that's why he's called Jesse. And then we've got Dom, who
Operation Dominic.
Operation Dominic. So that's where the 4 rats come from.
I don't remember there being an Operation Kitty.
There isn't an Operation Kitty. Kitty came about because we decided to run a competition to name the 4th rat.
So you're telling me the mascot was named after votes?
Yes, and unfortunately, it was at the time when there was the boat face was going on, and she's actually named after Kitty Kiribati, the lab ratty.
Kitty Kiribati, the lab ratty.
Yeah, and that's how she's become Kitty. But yeah, that's become she's the main focal point for us. Obviously, you've seen today, but it's there so that anybody, no matter what their age, can go and look up about the testing program.
Like one of the benefits of Kitty is that potentially you could do workshops with her. You know, take a, as you saw, massive 7-foot Kitty.
Yeah,
you go into schools. That's the best way of putting your word out there, I suppose.
Exactly that, and it's about raising awareness because obviously, if you talk to your colleagues here, how many of them knew? And one of the things that we need to get over is the fact that it's not ancient history.
Yeah, it's recent.
Britain's last nuclear test was done at the Nevada desert, underground in the Nevada desert in 1991.
Oh, so fairly recent.
Fairly recent, 1991.
I was expecting it to be 1970-something or 1980-something.
No, 1991, that was the last underground test.
I was expecting
and we only stopped atmospheric testing because the countries got together and stopped atmospheric testing. So there was a test ban treaty that was signed in 1962. So we did this. There's no getting away from it. It's in history.
We did this.
We affected these men. We affected the lands. We affected the indigenous people. We took their lands away, set off nuclear weapons on them, did lots of testing, then gave them back, cleaned them up, paid them £20 million in compensation in Australia because they're so contaminated, and then walked away.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be allowed to be happening.
I'd like to thank you for coming on because, it's not every day you get to speak to a nuclear descendant. And, as a founder of LABRATS or a nuclear charity. And
thanks very much for the opportunity to come and talk. There's lots more, I say, on our website. There's lots of things all about us, and there's lots more that you can find out yourself. Go online, find out about everything to do with the nuclear testing program, and we're always here to help and provide anything that anybody that might need. Yep, I'd like to give a massive thank you to Alan Owen, and a massive shout out to LABRATS International. And make sure you go and get an Atom magazine because, it is a fairly interesting read. And make sure to stay tuned and visit the website. Yep, there's more podcasts available. Thank you. Thanks, guys.